Hey everyone, we recently just finished production on a short film that was about 2 weeks of filming and actually post-production as we went. And we had no budget for this short film. We weren't hired by a specific client to do this. This was just a short film that myself and Jordan Dudek really wanted to see come to life. This was a concept that Jordan actually had about a year ago, and we were finally able to actually execute on it. So I'm gonna link the video up above. If you haven't seen the short film, I highly encourage you to just pause this video, go watch it, go check it out. But joining me here today is a new face, a new person, Tyler Bird. You can call him Bird. But Tyler was on set with us the entire time. And Tyler is still fairly new to film production. And so getting his perspective and asking questions of me, of the process, I thought would be really insightful for you all who are interested in maybe doing a short film yourself. So Tyler's gonna ask me questions about the production, and I'm gonna give you all some insight into how we were able to do this in about 2 weeks' time with no money, the crew, the talent, the locations, those kind of things. So Tyler, ask me whatever you want.
I think the important thing to talk about first is the pre-production. So what all went into planning this? How did we get to the idea, and kind of how did we scout out everything we needed to do for that in such a short time?
So pre-production is so valuable for any film that you're going to do, whether that's a commercial, whether that's advertising for a client. Pre-production is where you're really going to think through your scenes, who needs to be on camera, how you need to shoot things, how it's gonna start and how it's gonna end, because that's obviously very important. So Jordan actually did a great job of taking the concept that was in his head and actually turning that into a concept using stock video to really showcase kind of like how everything needed to flow and the scenes that he really wanted to see develop throughout the entire film. So that's one way you can do it, is actually go and pull stock clips, build out a timeline of a storyline that you actually want to see. Or you can use something like, I use an app called Millinote. And so Millinote's really nice because you can go and find images. If you don't have stock video, you can go find images and build out your storyboard and add in your cues and add in your shot list based on each scene you want to do there. So he spent about probably a week or so on pre-production, maybe longer than that, because again, this was a concept that he had for about a year now.
Yeah. So let's get into like the nitty-gritty a little bit of this. So talking about the gear that we used. I don't want to go into too many depths of.
Yeah, we'll save a lot of the gear for Jordan's, but I'll give a quick highlight.
Yeah, so shot on FX3.
Shot on the Sony FX3. Big reason for that is the dual native ISO. So having the opportunity at the higher ISO to be able to shoot in more low light scenarios where we were honestly only using LED tube lights to illuminate a lot of those scenes. You can't do that with a camera that has a native ISO at just 800 or even maybe like 3200. It was really useful to have that camera so that we could only have to use tube lights if that was what's needed. And again, when you're working with no budget, you're not gonna be putting up big HMIs, you're not gonna be putting up, a 1200 or a 720 everywhere. So you gotta think smaller lighting packages. And when you have smaller lighting packages, you've gotta have a camera that can kind of work around that.
And that's a good point too, because we had 3 tubes, a 720 light.
I think we used the 720 one time for like one scene.
But most of the time it was just shot like we were up in the space to do the evening shots of Brennan going to sleep. We were up at 5:30 in the morning doing the running.
Yeah, so most of it was natural light. It was using natural light. So the running scenes outside was all just planning for natural light, knowing when the sun was going to rise and planning for that.
And again, that's you knowing the park. That's you knowing the location that we're shooting at and knowing what time the sun's going to hit in this certain spot. Yeah, because we run there a lot.
So when you're working with no budget, use natural light to your advantage as much as possible. The only thing with natural light is you're just going to have to know where it's coming from and where it's hitting and what's going to be the most optimal time of day to shoot with natural light. So the most optimal time is not going to be during the middle of the day, especially if you're shooting outdoors. So like the scene where the girl's kicking the soccer ball up to her dad, we're getting this exchange between Brennan and the dad. All of that is natural light. We're not enhancing it by any way.
We diffused it.
Yeah, the only thing we were doing was just diffusing natural light. We didn't have another big source behind that. So diffusion of natural light and then just using natural light, period, is one of the best ways you can do a short film, but you've got to be really intentional and know how to use natural light.
Yeah. Jordan was DP. It was kind of his love child. Talk about that. So where did you come into the mix? Did he approach you and say, hey, I want to do this? And I know a lot of the times you were kind of helping behind the scenes provide some direction and kind of helping fulfill the story. But where did that boundary start and stop?
Yeah, so Jordan had been talking about this film for a couple of months, honestly. We were just really busy with a lot of client work, a lot of commercial work. And so we just didn't really have the time or the bandwidth to make it happen. And then all of a sudden we kind of got to a moment where things were a little bit more quiet. And Jordan was like, I think we can really make a go of this film right now. The people that I want to see involved in this film are ready to go. And I think this is our window of opportunity. We were also producing this film, creating this film to go along with the St. Jude Memphis Marathon weekend, which just happened this last weekend. So that weekend is when, there's 20,000 plus runners coming into town or from the community come and run the marathon or half marathon races. And they're in town to support St. Jude. And so we wanted to, this film is about runners running in support of a family whose child has pediatric or gets a diagnosis of pediatric cancer. So the narrative, the theme of it all went exactly with this event that was happening.
We worked with Hyperfocus to get a group running scene.
Yeah.
Brennan was an up-and-coming actor, is an up-and-coming actor.
So I mean, that's really the essence of it, is like if you're gonna have a no-budget film, and you have a specific theme, then you need to find people within that theme or within that community that you can have a conversation with and see if they're interested in partnering with you on that film. So in this case, we had a running group locally, Hyperfocus, and Hyperfocus, Jordan had already done a film with them, and so they were already intrigued. They were already kind of bought in to what we were producing. And so that's the other thing, is like you've got to get buy-in in some way. Right. So if there's talent locally, like Brennan, who's the main guy in this film, he actually wants to do more acting. He wants to have more acting gigs. And so one way that you can find people to be in your short films is to find people who are looking to kind of break out and have some portfolio pieces that they could showcase, for themselves. And so find people like that. Find people who have a little bit of acting chops and are trying to accelerate and maybe start their career in that direction. If you don't have anybody like that, then go in the direction too of like what we said of like a group like Hyperfocus, where we needed a group of runners at the end of the film. So find a group that could align with you to make that possible. And so just having conversations with them and giving them a vision for what we were trying to create is how you get them on board. You can't just be like, hey, do you guys want to be a part of a film? We're shooting it tomorrow. You need to give some people lead time and give them a vision for what you're trying to create. Because if people can't attach to the vision, if people can't attach to the mission of a specific film, that's gonna be really hard to get them involved and get them really bought in. So
talk more about that. So how did we find these people? I mean, Brennan, I know, is a friend of Jordan's. We used my daughter for the beginning scene. So we were kind of using what we had, but how did we go about, we didn't have like official casting calls for this. So how did we go about finding the right people to fit these roles?
I think one of the most important things when you're thinking from a director and producing standpoint is that you want to have really good on-camera personality. Because obviously the talent that you have that you're working with, whether it's professional or not, can make or break your film. Yeah. If they don't come across well on camera, then that can be really detrimental to how your film feels and how it connects with the audience. So in terms of somebody like Brennan, we needed somebody who had maybe a little bit of decent acting capabilities or would feel comfortable on camera. But then also the other important part of this film was a young girl who was about 9 or 10 years old. We needed somebody who would have a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of rapport with Brennan. So it's important when you're finding specific talent, specific characters in your film, if you need a supporting role as well, is like those people already need to have a relationship together. So Brennan, so the 9-year-old in this film is actually Brennan's niece. Mm-hmm. And because she is his niece, they already have that chemistry. They're a family. They're part of a family. And so having that chemistry allowed them, when we're actually filming, to be able to interact and work better together. Because if this 9-year-old that we were working with had never met Brennan before, had no idea, she would have been really shy. She would have been hard-pressed to do what we wanted her to do. And I mean, she, poor girl, she even cried before we did one of the scenes because she wasn't sure if she wanted to do it. Just think about if she didn't know Brennan at all. She didn't know us. If she didn't know Brennan at all, she would have probably cried and asked her parents to go home, you know? So especially when you're working with younger talent, they need to have some rapport. They need to have some chemistry with the other actors. So that typically needs to be kind of like maybe a family relationship, family friend relationship. That's really crucial.
When we talk about locations and we talk about all the things that go into this, like one of these scenes was in her bed, in her room, and so that kind of adds some texture and some things to it. But all the locations that we shot were just kind of on a whim, and even like the doctor scenes, we reached out to a clinic.
Yeah, we had reached out to a clinic, but we had reached out, I think Jordan actually reached out to 2 other clinics prior to that. And either we didn't get word back or they said no. So that's kind of the thing is shooting the home scenes were a little bit easier because we were using the homes of the people who were in the film. Right. Like we were using Brennan's brother's house, his niece's room, her bedroom, for the infant scene. We're at your house with your daughter in her crib. So you got to use what's available to you. But obviously nobody in our community owns a clinic or has a doctor's office. I mean, I know some doctors, I know some folks, I know people who work in the medical field, but I don't know anybody who actually owns the clinic, you know? So in that regard, we just had to kind of work within our chain of network and ask people maybe who had worked at those clinics or had some buy-in at those clinics to give us the contact information of people that we could reach out to. And that's how it ended up happening. Like Jordan's wife is in medical school to be a doctor. She knew somebody at this church health clinic. We were able to have a conversation with them because of that connection. And then we were able to get in, and that allowed us to get in during their after hours or before hours. Right. And so that's the thing is like, you've got to use your network. You've got to use people that you know to try and help you get contact information for people who have a location that you really want to use. Right. And it's not always a guarantee. It's not always a guarantee that somebody's going to want to be able to allow you to film there, but it's just a risk that you have to take. Again, when you have no budget, you just got to give people, again, a vision for what you're doing and then just ask them like, please, can we possibly shoot here?
We had locations that we needed to scout out. We had people that we needed to cast. And so we had to ask the people that were playing these roles, can we use your house? Can we use your front yard or anything like that? So I think the big thing here was you guys were vulnerable and said, this is what we're looking to do, but you're also very upfront with the people that we were working with to say, hey, this is our goal, this is our mission, this is what we want to capture. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit more about that. So how did you use your vision to cast this film?
Yeah, and I can't take ownership of, honestly, a ton of this because a lot of this was Jordan's effort and Jordan's work. But I think in terms of locations is, one, having some locations already in the bag that you already know of. You already know where the light's going to be. You already know when you want to film it, when you want to shoot it. So the opening scene and the closing scene is at a really big park here in Memphis. It's an area that Jordan and I both know really well. We know where the light is going to come up. We know where the sun is going to set. We know that direction and angle of that specific road that we were on. When he and I were talking about where to shoot it, and he was like, yeah, I'm thinking of this area, I knew exactly what he was talking about. I knew exactly where he was going to want to face the camera and direct the camera and where he was going to want to move. So having locations like that you already know of, that you can already have in the bag, locations that are public, that you have public access to and can go film there. So we already had that location in the bag. Then the other ones were not necessarily so hard to get because it was like, again, your house. It was the family's house that was involved and actually in the film, so they were willing to be a part of it as well. And then we went to just a local establishment for the scene where Brennan and the niece is sitting on the back of the truck. We just went to a local establishment in the evening and shot that scene. So as long as you're not intruding or trespassing on someone's property, I say just try and go for it. Just go for it. Like find a spot, and if you need people's permission, just ask. And again, just be genuine. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them, you're not trying to necessarily make like a ton of money from this, but you're just trying to execute on a film.
We didn't have a big crew on this, so it wasn't like we had 30 hands and like a bunch of grips and gaffers and PAs and all that stuff. I mean, it was me there helping set up stands and lights and run and make sure everybody's got water. It was another guy, Austin, that was there helping just kind of set things up. He's new into the video world as well. And then you guys were DPs and producing and directing, but also like...
Yeah, so Jordan was pretty much just DPing and directing. I was helping direct and just produce overall. And honestly, I was helping grip stuff too. Tyler was helping grip, PA. Austin was helping grip and PA. Really, it was like, I think at any given point, there was maybe a max of 5 of us, but really, I think most of the time it was just a 4-person crew. Yep. I mean, you were even booming audio.
Yep.
I was listening to the audio and just controlling that. And so, yeah, I mean, you can do this with a small team. Again, I think at any given time, there was only 4 of us working on the short film, which is pretty incredible when you see the result of the film. Like the film is beautiful.
Yeah.
But that part of that is just because Jordan is an exceptional DP. He and I have worked together a lot now over the last year, and he and I have both been in the industry for several years now. And so you can kind of create a good caliber of work when you have good knowledge and you have good chemistry with each other. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I have to remind myself is put out films that you want to see in the world. Not every film is going to be one that just hits, or one that just blows up, but you can't be working for that. Like Jordan and I truly want to put out films into the world that we believe in and feel like the message needs to be felt and heard. So put out the films that you want to see in the world and don't worry about the rest. Cool.
That's it.
Awesome, y'all. Great. Yeah, so if you haven't seen the film at this point, please go watch it. Check it out. Subscribe to Jordan's channel because he's an awesome guy and we want him to do well. Thank you all for watching. If you like this content, hit the like button. If you guys have any questions about the production, any specifics, I can answer those down in the comments below. And if there's something else you want us to make a video about, please let me know because we'd love to do that. All right. See you guys in the next video.
Peace.